So for this session, as Marian said, we have 3 guests from Romania, Cyprus, and Italy that will tell us a bit more on social entrepreneurship, social incubation, the role of culture in social economy. So we have Raphael, Irini, and Sonia. Welcome. Thank you for being with us and for investing your time with us this morning, noon. Okay. For the participants, before we dive in with guest introduction, I would like to let you know that this is a discussion, this is a conversation. So at any time, please feel free to pop up with questions, either orally or just drop them in the chat and I will transfer them to our guests. Okay, sounds good? Great. Okay, we'll take a few moments for each of the guests to briefly introduce herself, himself, and his work and background. So we can start with Sonia. Sonia, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hello, Marissa. Hello, Civitas Foundation and all the friends gathered here. I'm so happy to see so many social entrepreneurs so early in the year. It's barely the 12th of January, right? Thank you for your invitation to our friends and partners from Civitas Foundation, and thank you, Marissa, from Synthesis for moderating this conversation. My name is Sonia Opran. I'm co-founder and managing partner of Synergy Venture Catalyzer, short Synergy. We are a nonprofit organization based in Romania, Timișoara, and we help purpose-driven entrepreneurs and visionary NGOs start and grow social ventures through complex technical assistance programs that combine training, mentorship, and flexible finance. Our final impact basically translates in decent jobs, robust, sustainable organizations, and prosper communities. For me, my background is practically in business and finance. I come from a management consulting and financial services background, and for the past 6 to 7 years, I've been working in the social entrepreneurship ecosystem, educating social entrepreneurs. I've been designing and implementing educational programs for social entrepreneurs, and I'm an active mentor myself on financial management, performance management, fundraising, human resources, and impact measurement, among others.
Thank you, Sonia. That sounds great. Thank you for being with us. Can we continue with Irini? Irini, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Good afternoon, everyone. As you have probably guessed, I come from Synthesis, Cyprus. We had the pleasure and the luck that our founder is also the one who introduced the term social entrepreneurship in Cyprus almost 20 years ago, before it became such a hip word and so popular. So we have been working on this extensively. We are also the research collaborators for all the primary research done regarding social entrepreneurship in Cyprus by the European Union. And of course, being an island, we face a lot of challenges that cannot be found in other bigger countries, which we will discuss further later. My personal background comes from mass communication and risk, crisis, and disaster management. And we are also very fond of supporting social entrepreneurs that are looking to create more sustainable, more resilient communities, and also social entrepreneurs that want to address the issues that come up as a result of natural disasters, man-made disasters, or conflict. It is a pleasure being with you today, and I hope we will have a fruitful conversation in a little bit.
Great, Irini, thank you. It is indeed great to be with like-minded people. Raphael, are you with us?
Yes, hi everyone, it's a pleasure. I am an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, I think from for 20 years ago. I'm a co-founder of Matera Hub as the organization partner of this project. And also I'm here in a role of the president of a cluster of cultural and creative industries. For sure, my background is really more in focus with the cultural entrepreneurship and creative entrepreneurship, but I try today to share with you my point of view respect also to the future of the figure of social entrepreneur. I think really, really more linked with the cultural sector.
Great, Gabriel, thank you. Can you tell us a bit more about the cluster?
Yeah, some of you maybe know this world. The cluster are an organization born in all part of Europe, more or less 20 years ago. They was starting this adventure. A cluster is a combined research board and research organization and entrepreneur organization, entrepreneurship organization. The core of this this cluster, this kind of governance is to help the microsystem of entrepreneurs or microsystem of enterprises to invest in more better way in research and innovation. Because there are a lot of big enterprises who are really in field with the investment in research and innovation, but for the micro and the SME, it's really difficult. So for this reason, we have with the European Commission combined this different kind of organization in a one aggregation, one cluster.
Wow, amazing. Raphael, I know you have prepared a presentation for us.
Yes, if I'm the first, I can share with you my screen.
Feel free to go ahead.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, the idea, really briefly today, is to share with you some info about our point of view in terms, in respect to the figure of social entrepreneur in this moment. Also because we need to involve people in a new era. We are. I speak about. I tell about not only the SDG goals or some other goals we have in mind for the next 10 or 20 years, but it's also a really change moment, and we need to introduce more and more social innovation in every part of our life. So the idea of this presentation is under the title New Skills for Being an Entrepreneur and Generating Social Innovation. I start with a question for us, also for me, because I have in mind this question every time, every day. Who is the entrepreneur? Before speaking of social entrepreneur, my opinion is to understand more better who is the figure of entrepreneur. And I have in mind this kind of scheme. I don't know, it's really, I know it's really a simple scheme, but just to share with you some ideas, some tips about how we can imagine the figure of entrepreneur. And in general, we have a sort of balance from two worlds. Now, from one side, the word of profit. So a lot of people who have in mind the profit and who have the main mission to generate money. This is for sure a reality in the world in this moment. But also for the other side, there are a lot of people who become entrepreneur in a different way. They have in mind the idea of non-profit. Non-profit don't means non-money, sorry, but it means the idea to like a principal mission to generate value for himself and for the others. So I think in this moment, the opportunity we have is to combine also in different moment in respect to our life, this different kind of opportunity to become an entrepreneur, because it's also a question about the ecosystem where when people leaves, from one point of view about my experience. The second point is about the moment of your life For example, maybe there are a lot of young people who have in mind money for sure, or financing autonomy in the first part of their life, but maybe they continue grow after the 40 year, 50 year, they can become social entrepreneurs. So they can introduce in their life different kind of missions. So these two aspects for me is really the balance of entrepreneurship, I think. In effect, if you find online everywhere, if you try to understand if there is a classification of entrepreneur, this is one of the the most classify who you can find online. You can enter in this really jungle where there are different kind of figure of entrepreneur. Also depend about the dimension of the enterprise who you have in mind, or you can try to realize with a group of people alone. Or for example, if you have in mind to realize something who has in the first focus the idea of scale up, no, you know perfect maybe the name, the title of startups, where this kind of entrepreneurship or enterprises who needs to create a really money value in a really brief time. But in opposite, for example, I love another kind of way, another kind of type of entrepreneur is a cooperative, for example. In the cooperative, maybe also if you speak about social cooperative or consortium, you need to create a really long vision, no, in a more large time. So the idea is to find in this moment, following this kind of sort of classification, which is the best solution for you, for your group, for your team. This is also one of my suggestions. And after, we can go deeper about social entrepreneurship. So who is the social entrepreneur? Following and or maybe starting from the last list, we can go more deeper in a sort of more short list, but not so short, because also the social entrepreneurship is really another jungle. And here you can find some types of social entrepreneur, some types of people, no, characteristic of people who are really in charge with the idea to have a mission, like the idea to create value for others, to create services or product under the type of no-profit entrepreneurship model. Community project, for example, social enterprises more in general. Social enterprises is an enterprises who, for example, give some services directed to people, no, in social way, in healthy, in culture. Cooperative, I mentioned before, or for example, credit union. In this moment in Europe, we are open our doors to, for example, the benefit entrepreneurship. So it's really a good form or enterprise. This is for benefit. This kind of enterprises coming, this model come from America, United States 10 years ago, and now, especially in Italy, we are moving to transform some social corporate social responsibility enterprises in enterprises for benefit. Under this, for example, the 10% of your annual profit is dedicated to social aspect, for example, or to generate social impact and cultural impact around the ecosystem where the entrepreneur lead when the enterprise operate, but also inside of the enterprises. For example, if you imagine a small enterprises, maybe where work 10 people, the idea under this is to generate some benefit for these 10 people and their family. So it's more related with the community enterprises. Following this, for example, in Italy, there is another interesting moment, interesting movement in this moment. We are trying to create it, to transfer in a more large ecosystem like the other friends country in Europe. This is the cultural welfare. Cultural welfare is interesting because the starting point is some sector under the culture, heritage, performing arts, theater, and we know it's not a really new news this, but we know how this kind of practices or arts can help other sectors. This is interesting. I suggest you this website is culturalwelfare.center, who is an Italian website. Just 1 second, I can share with you. It's really interesting because here you can find some example. Sorry, but I think for this moment, it's only in Italian. But here you can find a lot of example view from the research point of view, but really interesting to read some of this article, how the arts and this practice, cultural practice, can help the other sector, especially under the services dedicated to the people. We are in charge with Materhub, other partner in Europe in this moment, to candidate to uploading a call to a new KIC, culture and creativity. The KIC are a community innovation, knowledge innovation community in Europe, financing by the IT of the European Commission. And the core of this new KIC, dedicated to culture and creative sector, is to create social innovation, not only inside of culture and creative sector, but also linked with other kind of sector. In this big proposal we are preparing this moment, we are speaking about a new renaissance. And in the baseline of this new renaissance movement, there is this approach. So cultural welfare. This is really interesting because if you if your starting point is coming from I think theater or another culture background or creative background, you can imagine how you can create, for example, your first or second adventure in entrepreneurship using your skills or your experience from the culture or creative sector. Go fast because I think I have only other 5 minutes. Another point for today is what are the main competencies to become an entrepreneur or social entrepreneur and to generate money, work, value, innovation, wealth for sure for ourselves and also others. In this, we have studied a lot the last 5 years with Materhub and other friends in Europe to create, thanks to a group of researchers in the European Commission. The name is JRC, is a really big institution who generates research under this kind of topic. We have both together create this new idea about the competencies, the entrepreneurship competencies. I know you have already discussed about this topic, but I can try in these 2 minutes to help you to understand more better this flower, because this is really important, not only under the educational system, but also if you have in mind to become an entrepreneur in this moment or to grow your experience in entrepreneur. This flower collects 15 principal or main competencies who, in general, we know each entrepreneur needs to train or to acquire. If you look more better, there are 5 competencies for 3 groups, and they are all important because if you are in a starting point, if you have already an enterprises, or if you now start this adventure, you need to try to train more and to grow the first 5 competencies, because they are linked with idea and opportunities. In the same way, there are other group resources into action who I suggest to understand it more better, also in a sort of self-assessment. because the idea is not only to define these competencies under this entrecomp, but also to define which is the level who you are in this moment, or you need to move yourself. And the level of the entrecomp are 8 in total. This is really an interesting scheme, because here you can imagine and you can test yourself, assess yourself to understand better which is your position in this moment, maybe for each competencies or in general for your experience about entrepreneurship. In baseline, for example, if you bring from this flower one competencies, maybe one is financial and economy literacy, or for example, valuing ideas, or planning and management, is one of the most famous under in the world of the entrepreneur. For example, in planning and management, you are in the baseline level, so you are in the condition to use really these competencies without a guide, without a facilitator. No, if you are in a first level or second level in baseline, you are in a situation where you cannot use that competencies alone. But if you try yourself, if you train yourself also using the direct experience, you can move in respect to that competencies in a more high level. And when we move from left to the right in this scheme, we improve the competencies, and we will try to use that competencies alone. In the last 2 levels, so 7 and 8 in the expert part, not only you will use this experience alone, but also you, for example, you try to become mentor for others. This is interesting. Also for this reason, is interesting, this scheme. And you can find, you can use this scheme, for example, in educational world, but also in your pathway, in your entrepreneur pathway. And to finalize this topic, I have another question. Where and how can entrepreneurial competencies be developed? So where and we can develop this kind of competencies? In my experience, we can discuss about that. Keep in mind this 4 main ecosystem who an entrepreneur can become more expert. No, for sure at school, and in this moment, not all the educational system in Europe has the opportunity to improve competence and entrepreneurial skills at school. For example, in this moment, we have in mind in our region, but also in Italy, to create a Fab Lab or a creative hubs inside of the school. But also inside of the university, you know, the 60% of the incubator and accelerator in Europe are inside of the university. This is really important because you need in your life to train 3 different parts of your I think it's not part, 3 different issues. From one side, knowledge. So school and university are really the most important place where you can grow your knowledge. From the other side, skills, but also attitude. No, attitude is also important. So maybe at the school and university, this moment, you can train your knowledge, not a lot your skills, and we need to transform this place to because we need to train more our skills, because only in that way we can acquire a new attitude, also an entrepreneur attitude, which is not only for the entrepreneur people, the entrepreneurship, but is for all. At work, for sure, but my preference is making direct experience. And for this reason, I have the last 3 suggestions for you. One is, in this moment, find 1 or more mentors. The second is test fail and learn from your failures. And for this reason, I love the direct experience. And the third is a suggestion also for your life. Again, work on your attitude.
Thank you, Raphael. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you for your valuable insights. We have some questions in the chat. The first question is, what do you mean by for-profit social enterprise?
No, maybe for-profit, it's not really linked with social enterprises in general, but for sure, a for-profit company can invest some money in social impact and social activity. This is the point. In the future, I think, but also we look this process now in the present, a lot of small, medium or big enterprises can transform themselves in a more social enterprises. But we need to understand altogether the real means of social, no? Because it's totally different from country. It's totally different inside of country from ecosystem, no? And the idea is to understand, to speak about impact, no? So it's not really the useful name of social to transform an enterprises in a social enterprises, but we need to introduce some monitoring tools to understand in which way and in which effective way enterprises can generate social, cultural, or environmental good impact. This is, I think, the point. I don't know if I was answered to the question.
I don't know if the question was clear. I have a question. This type of an enterprise is more close to a socially conscious enterprise or a social enterprise? I don't know.
Try to repropose the question in a more detailed way, which is your doubt, or
I meant that a for-profit, basically, I think that the question was, how can a social enterprise generate profit?
Okay, it depends
Right?
about the kind of social enterprises, no? So, for example, if we speak about a cooperative, no, or social cooperative, or a small enterprises who produce or give services for people, no, health services or school services, I don't know. In that way, you need different model, no, to generate money. Because I think the profit, it's not really your goal. Your goal is money or sustainability, no? In terms of sustainability, you need to generate money. And in this moment, we are different model also we can try to test in our ecosystem or for our organization to understand how we can involve, for example, investors or philanthropic people, no, to our project. But in that way, we need to become more creative and more strategic organization, because we can adapt also different traditional services in a new way, no? To also to understand how we can mix different kind of aspect and different kind of activity or skills of our organization to involve different kind of people. For example, to combine our organization with the traditional enterprises, to create or to involve some for-profit entrepreneurship inside of our board. So there are a lot of opportunity. I think the only lock is coming from us, from our organization, from our competencies. For this reason, I speak a lot about entrepreneurship competencies, because entrepreneurship competencies in this moment, it's not only about management or managing an organization. It's more and more. It's also combine new view, test new way. That's the point.
Great. Sonia, you would like to say something?
Yes, with your permission, I would like to have
course.
to get involved in the conversation, because it's also a topic that is relevant and widely discussed in the Romanian ecosystem as well. So I wanted to offer the perspective that in the Romanian ecosystem, for-profit social enterprise is actually an entity incorporated as a for-profit, but guided by a social mission. I think it's unarguable that a social enterprise, first and foremost, is an enterprise which needs to generate profits to sustain itself in the long term. My point is that you cannot serve a social mission if you are not in the market. So that is why financial sustainability and generating profit, it's an important component in social entrepreneurship. Now, the difference between a classical for-profit and a for-profit social enterprise, it is what is being done and what is being achieved with that profit. In the case of traditional enterprises, profit is typically distributed to the shareholders that can use it in their own benefit, while social enterprises use that profit to serve that mission. That means investing in social programs that are attached to their missions, or reinvesting the profit in growing and consolidating the social enterprises, providing more jobs for people in need, and generally actually building a stronger base for achieving social impact on a long term. So I know this is a very complex conversation. I wanted to offer my perspective as well, because it's something that we hear a lot in the ecosystem. And personally, we at Synerby, we are not aligned with this way of vilifying profit, right? Because to have a financially sustainable activity, it's very important. And we don't see any other way for social enterprises to be able to serve their mission if they don't look at the numbers as well. So I hope I managed to clear a little bit on that.
Yes, and thanks, Sonia. Sorry, just because Sonia was described with your words exactly the what I means and what the law means about for benefit enterprise. So it's really this is the key point. No, it's a new way to combine the for-profit enterprises, but who the enterprises who needs, or you as the mission, the new mission to generate social and cultural impact. So this is really the key point.
I would like to add to this the fact that in order, if you want to be a social entrepreneur, you need, so you spoke about the mission and about the needs of the community, but in order to sustain those needs without such a gratifying profit, let's say, you need passion, you need the profit of your competencies and how they reflect in the community. So passion in this kind means what would you like to give to the community, not only what are the needs. We will always find needs in the community, but it is also important to think what would we like to do and what are our competencies, and also if we want to do something specific, how we can study in the academy, maybe in order to gain those competencies, for example. So we could reevaluate our intentions better in this kind, because social entrepreneurship is not just like, so it's just like it's such a pleasure to serve the people. It is if you serve it your way too. So it's I think it's somewhere in between, and this is my perspective over this. And I also want to ask, I want to ask Raphael, if you think there is any chance that in the following time there could be like a mix in the companies, like for example bookstores, like that could host events for the DJ culture and the musical artists and visual mappers that are, we all know now they are say, setting aside because they have no club culture to play at anymore. And that's because they also need a more responsible lifestyle, and club culture couldn't hold this in the constant term, like as a company. So I feel now it's more oriented towards education. But I was thinking, do you think it's possible in the following time that like art, sound art, or like this kind of books and coffee and music happen together, being sustained by European mission, I mean, like founded?
I think from one side, I answer to your doubt. So there are a lot of no-profit enterprises who are really big and who are really linked with, for example, NGO world. I think that kind of organization are already enterprises, because also if they cannot produce profit during the year, they are really balanced in terms of sustainable organization, so sustainability.
They are balanced because they also have other jobs where they balance their lifestyles.
It depends. There are a lot of organizations who create activity for a lot of people who have also big organization who in the final balance of the year, they close their balance at zero, so without profit. And this is important to know, because also, for example, Matera Hub is a consortium. It's a social enterprise, but it's a consortium, and we manage a lot of activity, a lot of projects, a lot of services. We have a lot of people who work with Matera Hub, but in the end of the year, we close our balance in zero money. So in terms of no profit, this is one point. The second point, for sure, this is the era when we can try to combine different sectors, as I say before, culture and digital. Perfect this, but also healthy and theater, or for example, manufacturing and I don't know, personal services. So it's really the moment when we can test different kind of opportunity. Also because it depends a lot about your ecosystem. If your ecosystem is not an ecosystem who run to the growth, for example, like an ecosystem under the city of Milan in Italy, or under the city like Barcelona, but you live in a small village in an edges area, you need to combine different aspects, and you need to try to test it to understand how you can stay there, because sometimes I know people need to understand which is the better way to balance their money sustainability, also coming in a sort of compromise situation, to remain in their village, don't move, for example, their enterprises, but to create a sustainable work. This is really a challenge, I think. It's not good for all people. Depend about your age, your experience. I repeat, your land, your ecosystem. I know a lot of people needs maybe before to create some competencies, or to grow some competencies in other ecosystem. And for this, I suggest you also some European program. We manage, for example, one of this European program is the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. It's interesting program. You can find on Google Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. It's really simple to go deeper about the program. But my suggestion is also, if you are available for this, to create a mobility experience in another country to train your competencies, also using the volunteer program, European Solidarity Corps. This is also, it's for all age, But I think this mobility, this experience is really an accelerator for you, for your competencies. This is my opinion. But also to involve yourself in activity like social activity in your ecosystem, because in that moment you can train your competencies and your skills in a really right way.
Thank you very much. I already participated into this, the first one that you said, the European for Entrepreneurship exchange at the publishing house in Berlin, Italian publishing house based in Berlin. And I've learned a lot. That's why I came up with this vision now. So yes, you're true. These are very useful tools in order to realize what we want.
And the last thing is last suggestion, last tips is in terms of study. So you need a lot to study the other models, to know people, to speak with these people. And so from one side, for sure, find your mentor is a really right way and right tips, but also study. We have in this era the opportunity to create connection with a lot of organizations, a lot of people, but also to know different moments, different situation, and to imagine how we can customize that model or that situation in our perspective. So this is also interesting and important.
Thank you, Raphael. I would like to stand on what you said about how our competence development depends on the special characteristics of our ecosystem, when we gave the example about Milan. I would like to ask Irini to join the conversation and tell us about any particularities or special characteristics of the social enterprise ecosystem in Cyprus.
I would say that actually every social entrepreneurship ecosystem is different. You can have some common characteristics in some of them, but the community situation and the political and historical and cultural situation will usually dictate different needs and different perspectives. Cyprus is a very particular case because, as I'm sure you know, is a country that is divided, and therefore it's actually split in half, with a lot of discrepancies and inequalities between the two communities on the island, and a lot of historical, cultural, political baggage, let's say, which means that you have a very small market, very small communities, and a lot of passionate people with great ideas that have a lot of issues upon implementation. Some of the issues are dependent on the fact that Cyprus only recently got legislation that governs social entrepreneurship. Only in the year 2021 it became enforced, and still a lot of people are not even aware or familiar with the legislation. So they have some trouble in understanding what it is they're asking to do. So sometimes here in Synthesis and also at Hub Nicosia, we get entrepreneurs with amazing ideas. And we tell them, okay, so you have a very nice social entrepreneurship idea. And they're like, oh, I don't know, what is this? I just want to meet this need in my community, or I see a gap in the market, and they don't even realize that what they're talking about is social entrepreneurship. We also have a little bit of misrepresentation or confusion regarding what is an NGO, what is the mission and the scope of being a non-government organization, or a philanthropic institution, a charity, and what it means to be a social entrepreneur. So to go back in the previous discussion, we most definitely need profit in social entrepreneurship. And the more profit you have, the bigger the vision, the bigger the scope, and the bigger the reach you have in the community. So if I had to be very blunt about it, you need to have a lot of profit, and you should strive to have a lot of profit It's just that the profit doesn't end up in your pocket. So it doesn't matter how much you make, you should make as much as possible. It is just that you will not make it in your bank account, in your own personal finances. So it's not like I make profit, so I just transfer everything to my account and I'm very happy for it. The more profit you make, the bigger the opportunity you have to expand your business model to cover more needs of the community and make more profit in the process. So most definitely we need profitable social enterprises, and there are a lot of options for people who do not want to make a profit. They can start a charity, they can start an NGO, but I wouldn't say that these are entrepreneurial visions. So in Cyprus, we still struggle a little bit between what it means I want to selflessly help the community as a volunteer and what it means I want to serve the community as a social entrepreneur. In my opinion, social entrepreneurs actually want to make lasting impact on the community. They don't just intervene sporadically to address a need. They want to make a social change, and they are willing to put their money in that process. So the ecosystem in Cyprus is still in the very early stages, and we have a lot of definitions to sort out and a lot of questions to ask. And of course, we have a lot of best practices that we can use. And our primary challenge is how we can get social entrepreneurship that will go beyond the island. So one of the challenges is how to internationalize our efforts on the island so that we can reach wider communities and, of course, wider markets. So right now, I would say that we share a lot of challenges that smaller communities share, or countries that have an underdeveloped ecosystem. But what we lack in numbers, we have in determination. So hopefully we will catch up eventually.
Thank you, Irini, and thank you for setting like a misconception about social entrepreneurship state and the difference with volunteering or the need to do something for the society. I would like to ask Sonia. Sonia, are you with us?
I am.
Yes, because we have in the group many aspiring entrepreneurs that are in the startup phase of their companies. What kind of help can they ask for? In what ways can incubators, for example, help them? Or how can they find funding?
So I think in terms of finding funding and finding support at this stage, I think there is no shortage of programs in the EU at this point for social entrepreneurship. Obviously, social entrepreneurship is a topic that it's gaining momentum and it's rising in importance on the agenda of the European Commission. So my advice would be, what is really important for aspiring entrepreneurs is that they would be able to build a prototype that they could go to the market and test it as soon as possible. So in order to do that, maybe it would be a very good idea, just like Raphael mentioned earlier, to join the program of an incubator or an accelerator, or to search for a mentor that could guide the social entrepreneur in his journey, or both. Usually incubators and accelerators provide a lot of services in the form of training, mentorship, and even finance for social entrepreneurs to be able to get closer to actually launching a product or a service on the market. So of course, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that do not go for this path. Entrepreneurs that are self-starters. We know entrepreneurs of this type. So I think it's really, it is really about the type of entrepreneur itself and how he or she finds value in the entrepreneurship journey. Like if they prefer to learn in a support community, to join a cohort, for example, in an acceleration or incubation program, or if they prefer to learn to get the entrepreneurial gist one by one from working with a mentor, so on and so forth. It really, it's a personal choice. But in the early stages of the enterprise, we find that it's very important not to be alone, to have some sort of guidance, personal guidance, but also in terms of technical knowledge, right? There are very important topics to be addressed at the beginning of the life cycle of a social enterprise. And I would say the first step in that is evaluating whether the idea it's something that the market would appreciate, if what you are proposing, what the entrepreneur is proposing, it's actually something that can find a value in the market and something that the entrepreneur could sell.
Thank you, Sonia. I want to ask, after the startup phase, what is like the most common issue or the most common mistake that you notice social enterprises make?
Yeah, that is actually quite easy. So a lot of social enterprises start from the social mission, right? And they quickly manage to round up the support of the community. They manage to recruit a customer base that they're basically buying from them because of their attachment with a social mission, right? I want to support that community, so I'm buying from that social enterprise. The problem is that this customer niche is quite small. So social entrepreneurs that want to sell their products or their services using mainly, putting at the forefront their social mission, are rapidly reaching a plateau. And after that, they're confronting with the challenge to grow, right? So the plateau, the size of the plateau differs from case to case. It can be like a few dozens of customers, a few hundreds of customers, a few thousands of customers. And it's typically reached in the period between the first and 1 or 3 years. And after that, if they don't invest significant time in shaping the product in such a way and shaping the business in such a way that their product would appeal to markets, that to customers that are not necessarily attached to their social mission, or they're not buying from them from an alignment with the social mission, then it's very difficult to grow. So this is something that we advise entrepreneurs from the beginning of the startup, right in the early stages, to think about the product and the service that they're offering, to make that a very good product or service that would appeal to an existing market, even if they stripe the social mission. And most successful social enterprises that we know, they actually sell products and services that are like very high quality, class quality. Many of them sell premium services or products. And a lot of their customers did not initially purchase because of the social mission. That was like a nice addition. Oh, wow, this enterprise, it's helping the community. But the way in which they managed to grow is that they invested a lot of time in bringing something valuable to the market that would be purchased by regular customers, in addition to the mission-aligned ones.
Great. So how can a social entrepreneur promote the product or the service and still create awareness on the social mission? I think it is a fine line to find the balance to do both.
Yeah, I would say reaching an equilibrium is not a balance between the two. It's not an easy task, but it's not all that difficult either, right? Because what to say, I think both need to to be dedicated enough time. But I think we need to see them in some sort of symbiosis, right? You can't do one without the other. The reason why you are selling the product or service is that you want to sustain and to serve a social mission in the long run. But at the same time, you want to rise a community, like to help a community through selling that product or service. So I think in terms of communicating the social impact, I don't think it should go at the forefront of the economic engine, but it should be an important part of it, right? So I would say like maybe a third from communication efforts should go to communicating the impact of the community, and the social impact story should be available and should be visible to people, to customers searching for it, but should not, I don't think it should necessarily run the story in many cases. And I have this very good example to give. In we've been mentoring a social enterprise. It's like now I think it's 5 years old already, or 6 in Romania. It's called Made in Roșia Montana. They are a for-profit social enterprises. They're incorporated as a limited liability company, and they make merino knit beanies and scarves and gloves using the talent of 35 ladies. They started with 35 ladies 5 years ago, and they sell that through online shops, at fairs, through other aggregators. So at the beginning, they started with 35 ladies, right? But in time, it became a premium fashion brand, right? So they really research into all the tendencies of fashion. They come up with new products every year so that their customer base increased each year, right? And now they're expanding, like they're growing to 50 ladies that are knitting these products. So this kind of balance I'm talking about in actually investing in permanently refining the product and making it appealing for the market, while at the same time communicating about the social mission.
Thank you for the great advice and for explaining it in more practical terms. I think this is what everybody needs here. Because I see that we're running out of time, it's already 1:20. Do you have any last advice, Sonia and Irini, that you would like to give to the group?
I'll let Irini go first.
I would say that, you know, as the famous whiskey saying goes, keep going. Sometimes you won't succeed the first time and maybe not the second, but eventually, if you are committed and skilled and willing to learn and willing to adapt and flexible enough, you will get there. And unfortunately, things don't change overnight. So sometimes you need to be happy about the very, very small changes you see and you make. And eventually, when you look back, it will turn out that these were quite substantial once you see them in the rearview mirror.
All right.
Thank you, Irini. Thank you.
Very inspiring, Irini. Thank you. So I was thinking that for entrepreneurs in general, and I think for social entrepreneurs in special, I think it's very easy to get disheartened at times, because the social enterprise, it's an entity more difficult to run and more difficult to bring to performance because it has big social costs. And the only way to balance those social costs is to become very good at what you do. And in this context, I think many social entrepreneurs can feel overwhelmed at times. And maybe I could leave them with this thought that to ask themselves, when all the things would go wrong, what is it that will keep them going? So I think in times of being disheartened, I think it's maybe a good idea to to go back to the initial thought that powered the startup of the social enterprise to obtain renewed energy, maybe.
Do not forget why you started.
Exactly, yes, not forget why you started.
Yes. Okay, ladies, thank you very much.